Hello and welcome back to another episode of Strong Collectors Comics. I'm your host Jordan, joined today by my plucky co-host Dakota. Now we just got a updated sneak peek of Superman. Now if you've been listening for any amount of time, you know I'm incredibly excited for this movie. However, the internet, or at least some of the angry nerds, are a bit divided, Dakota. Now I'd sent you an article that kind of summarized a lot of some of this chatter around here. I don't know where everybody's at who's listening. I am personally very excited for the direction Superman is going in, but there are definitely some detractors. I feel like it's a little bit of nitpicking, which I think is some of the worst critique from comic book fans, Dakota. I've always said they're the best and the worst fans in the world, because if you do exactly what they like, they love you. But if it's not exactly right, usually, the criticism is pretty hard. So, A, would you say that's accurate? And B, what are your thoughts of the Superman new look, some of the reactions to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think comic book fans are probably the worst at that, but I think it's a product of being so passionate about the
Mm-hmm.
stories that we're reading and everything. But I think even that it's like people are like, "Oh, but this didn't happen exactly like this in, you know,
Mm-hmm.
World War Hulk or Justice League doesn't actually fight Darkseid this exact way." It's like, "Well, do you want to just see your stories
Mm-hmm.
on screen, like panel for panel, because I think those movies can almost be a little bit boring too. Because it's like I loved the story, but
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna just watch it kind of in the same story in motion. I don't mind when people like take their own interpretation of things and make the story theirs.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, though, I am guilty of being like, oh, they didn't do this character just the way I wanted them to, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So yes, and I think
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the article was saying is I think a lot of people maybe really like the Snyder stuff, and this isn't that. They've actually got lights on set so you can see what's happening, and maybe some
There's
people just
color.
they don't want to see what's happening. They
They're
want
not in black and white.
I was gonna say they want the black, white, gray, very muted, dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll say just
No,
just
well,
just being able to see what's happening in the trailer made me more excited for this movie. So I will say I thought that
yeah.
the teaser was a little too goofy to me. I was like, okay, so
Mm.
this is definitely the guy that made Guardians of the Galaxy, because it
Okay.
seems exactly the same type of like, oh, we're gonna throw in some jokey type of things, and here's my robots, and they've got a sense of humor too, and even the
Right.
dog's a little silly. I'm like, okay, this
Yeah.
is. I'm only seeing 2 minutes of this movie, but I didn't love it.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess for me, okay, I'll say to your first thing, I do agree. I think comic fans are incredibly passionate about characters, which I think is a very cool thing. So I think inherently that's pretty good, and I get it because everyone has different experiences, whether it's a show, a movie, a book, and in all those iterations, these characters are of course slightly different because it's a different person creating it. So that's kind of my pushback,
Hmm.
not slickback, on that when people are like, well, this isn't Superman or this isn't so and so, because you may have just been familiar with a certain version of that character. So it's always kind of reinterpreted, which I think is a cool thing,
Hmm.
but can lead to that bit of confusion for sure. But I think with Superman, yeah, that inherent quality that is pretty much the through line. And there's a place for the kind of darker thing if you really want to do it, like with Superman and that whole world. But I think for the most part, Superman is, to most people, kind of that more hopeful, optimistic.
Hmm.
You got some colors in there. I mean, I think that's the whole point, and that's why I liked the red trunks. I think that's a small thing, but I think it kind of embraces that, like not being afraid to seem kind of silly in a way, but also being like comic booky, but being a little more like putting it in a real context. Because I guess I didn't read the jokes that in that sense. Like I don't think it will be Guardians of the Galaxy level of humor, but I do think there should be some levity or humor to it. Like I don't mind the humor being Crypto's a dog that's kind of jumping around, and because he's so super powerful, he pounces on Superman and like kind of hurts him.
Hmm.
Like I don't think that is like this is taking away from me taking Superman or taking this story seriously. Because I think even in like the Justice League cartoons, which a lot of people love as Superman, he always had kind of a sense of humor about him.
Hmm.
And I think there was something about the guy who's super powerful having that perspective. Um, I mean, I guess you could say the robots, maybe they've got a joke in there, but I mean, I think the thing I would say is we don't quite know when this is taking place. Clearly,
Hmm.
he's got pretty beat up or something's going to be going on. But things I was seeing people say, it's like the whole he's getting hit by sunlight to heal, and people are like, he's yelling in pain. Superman shouldn't yell in pain. The Snyder Superman took a nuke and he was fine.
Hmm.
Which it's like I don't mind seeing Superman portrayed in that way.
Hmm.
I think it's kind of cool. Um, but I guess embracing like that he's got the fortress and it's an actual fortress. There's robots in there.
Hmm.
Whereas I think the Snyder movies it was almost afraid to get there because that can seem kind of silly on the surface. Like he's got a secret hideout in Antarctica with
Right.
robots and trophies and stuff. But that is all stuff in the comic books,
Hmm.
which I think can be translated to the screen. But I think you do need a little bit of a, I say sense of humor, but not to make that like we need to make this super serious or super acceptable to the general audience because I think Guardians of the Galaxy was able to make things that could have been kind of silly acceptable to people by embracing that, by not being like we need to find a way to make Groot more realistic or like Rocket needs to communicate telepathically because it'd be silly to see a raccoon talk.
Hmm.
But I think because he did that, he created some compelling characters and stories and things that you actually felt the emotional weight of. So I do think he's going to pull that off here. And I think embracing that stuff, to me, is a good sign.
True. I think even with the automatons and like the whole like giving Superman the ant under the microscope type thing, I think
Mm-hmm.
I was like when he starts, like the sun it hurts me so
Right.
much. I think I was like, okay, the automatons can hold Superman down when he's in pain, and like that seemed a little bit odd to me.
Mm.
And even my wife was kind of like, how strong are those robots? Like they can like subdue Superman in times like that? Because at that point, it's like, why are those automatons not just like having Superman's back in whatever fight, just beat him up? Because obviously they could hold
Mm.
their own. So
Right.
I don't know. I did love the fortress and like how it like moved. I thought that was kind of cool to catch more
Mm-hmm.
of the sun. I like that it
Yeah.
was it like came up out of the ground. I love that crypto's in it. I think that's going to be really fun. I think some
Mm-hmm.
people are, I don't know, not happy about that, but it's a cute, fun way to bring him in. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I didn't love how goofy it was and everything, but I
Mm-hmm.
did I like Crypto. I'm excited to see him in a live action.
Okay. So we got you on crypto.
Yeah.
You're just unsure of the strength of the robots?
Well, I mean, it's just it like I said,
The Kryptonian robots, dude. They're probably super strong.
well, true. I just like I feel like that 2 minute clip that they showed us, I was like, this does not excite me about the movie, but also at the same time, it's like, what do I want? Do I want them to show me the like boss battle? No, so it's okay that I
Yeah.
don't see the best part of the movie as the teaser. So it's not like I'm
Right.
like, oh, this movie's garbage. I'm not going to watch it. Like I'm going to
Right.
see it. I'm excited. I'm
I think
still a
yeah.
little skeptical, but I've got high hopes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean I don't think it was intended to be like this is a game-changing thing. I think
Hmm.
it was just kind of a fun extra look at it and specifically showing the fortress,
Hmm.
showing that there will be things like the robots, kind of embracing that like sci-fi element of
Hmm.
Superman, which I think is missing in a lot of ways. And I think that's kind of a fun way to bring in those like almost 70s, 80s. I mean, they reintroduced some of it in more recent comics like All-Star Superman with him having the fortress as more of a functional place than just like a deserted ice castle. Like it's actually has some kind of function.
Hmm.
So I like that part.
Yeah, and I love that
And
it's like it.
yeah.
It does give Superman more to him than just he's the guy that flies and can punch really hard. It's like he's got
Mhm.
like I think that those aspects of Superman are usually like overlooked and like I don't know. We had the Fortress of Solitude and the Snyder stuff, but it wasn't like it just felt like some like his version of the Batcave, and I was like, but that's not really
Right.
like the vibe of Superman. Like I've always thought that it's more of like, a brighter, not like he's going there to like have fun and hang out type of thing, but it's like,
But he could
Superman's.
have fun and hang out there if he
He
wanted
could
to.
if he could throw a party, um, but it's just like this seems more like bringing in comic book elements of, like you said, like the fortress with the automatons. Because I don't have we seen automatons in live
No,
action?
not even in the old Superman movies. It was
Right.
always just kind of like a deserted ice castle.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Snyder ones, yeah, it was almost just like the Kryptonian spaceship kind of, but it
Yeah.
wasn't really like a true fortress, I don't think.
Yeah. So that's where I like that. This does seem like it's bringing in more like actual comic book, and like you said, it's
Hmm.
embracing what the comics were, even though they're a little, less realistic. That's
Hmm.
okay. I realize I'm watching a Superman movie, and it doesn't need to be realistic.
Guy
So,
that can fly and shoot lasers out of his eyes. Well, yeah. And I think that's what people, I think, get confused on is it's not like you have to take it realistic in the sense of like science and physics,
hmm
because people are like, oh, you know, I would even argue it is though, because when people are like he's healing, you shouldn't scream in pain, the sun heals him. And I'm like, well, if like his bones are broken or something and his bones are healing, like that actually hurts. I don't know if you've
right.
ever been hurt before, but it hurts when your body heals. So I would say that's actually more scientific. But in the sense of like, I think Snyder being like, we need to ground and make it gritty and like realistic in a sense. But I think if you take the character seriously and like the emotions of it seriously, you can get away with, yeah, there's a superpowered dog flying around. And I think people will buy it. And I think that's kind of what I feel people are getting hung up on is like, well, it's not serious
hmm
because there's Crypto the dog, but I think you can make a pretty compelling story with Crypto in it and like actually give that weight. So I also liked seeing the look of the suit. I thought the suit
hmm
looked pretty good in that context, and I think that might hopefully be winning people over. But I guess when it's just maybe I'm already making my opinion based on these short looks. But when it is like this looks like trash, this sucks, bring back Snyder, this is going to be garbage. It and again, maybe that is the small minority that has a loud voice. Be curious to hear our listeners what you guys think of these looks because, as I've said, I'm pretty excited for this. Have been for a while with Superman, and I think it's going to surprise a lot of people. I think I'm calling it Dakota. The haters will be swayed, and this is going to be a smash hit for the beginning of this lovely DCU. Put my money on it.
I hope so.
Those are some of our thoughts on the new Superman sneak peek. Let us know below what you're thinking. Are you excited? Do you not like that Superman's bones hurt him when he's healing? Or should that be happening? Please be liking, sharing, and subscribing. And if you haven't watched it, go check out our Amalgam DC videos. Because if you come this far, chances are you'd love to hear us talk about Marvel DC crossing over in comics. And I gotta admit, that's some great content. So check it out. And as always, until next time, stay strong.